Welcome. This practice I call figure 4 play, and it's all about external rotation of the hip, but it's a nice little movement puzzle that would be, say, a condensed version of a Feldenkrais class. So let's get started by lying down on our backs. And come into Shavasana and let your back body surrender to gravity. I want you to imagine that you're lying on the beach, and the sun is shining, the waves are rolling in. You can smell the sea, the salty air. And you're lying in the sand. And as you lie here in the sand, notice the imprint that the back of your head makes in the sand. Then travel your awareness to your upper back and notice the imprint of your right shoulder blade and your left shoulder blade, your spine in the center, as well as your right and left arms, and how your body imprints itself into the sand. And then traveling lower in your awareness, in your mind's eye, to your lower back, your buttocks, your right and left leg, right and left foot. And what would the imprint of your whole back body be in the sand? If you could float outside of your body, above your body, and walk away and look behind you, what would the depth be of your body's imprint in the sand? And then go ahead and bend your knees so you have both feet on the ground. And you're going to take your right hand and hold your left foot. And just notice how that feels. And as you notice how it feels, you're going to just straighten and bend your left knee again and again. So your left foot gets a little closer to the ceiling and then a little closer to the floor. And notice how you could do this with your foot just, right along the midline of your body or kind of in line with your spine. Or you could do it a little more to the right, as if you were almost in that figure 4 position. Or you could do it a little further out to the left. So a couple more times, and it doesn't need to be giant or big or stretchy. In fact, you might learn even more by keeping it small. Not just to learn more about all the sensation you might be feeling here, but what's happening through your right arm, through this closed loop. And then take a little rest. Let go for a moment. And observe your breath. Take a slow breath in and exhale out of your mouth. And then take a hold of your left foot again with your right hand. But this time you're going to take your left hand to the back of your head. And as you straighten your knee, you'll also lift your head up a little bit and then lower it back down. So we're putting these two movements together. And again, the goal isn't to, make this the biggest movement possible. It's just to explore sensation. And like I said, maybe your foot is a little more over to the right as you bend and straighten your knee, or it's a little more over to the left. And maybe you're just lifting your head, but not your upper back. How does that feel versus what's it like when you lift your upper back and your head? So there's more spinal flexion versus less spinal flexion. Let's do a couple more times. Pick an option or a variety. a vector or an angle of this movement that you are curious about or feel like exploring. Last time. And then go ahead and release. Bring your left foot back to the ground, let your arms rest on the floor, and pause for a moment. Checking back in with your imprint in the sand and your breath. Okay, so roll onto your left side and come on up to seated into cobbler's pose. And I'm going to turn to the side just so you can see my spine. So you'll have the soles of your feet together, and totally up to you whether your feet are in close or farther away. I recommend starting with your feet a little bit further away, though. And then you'll take your hands behind you on the floor and come into this slouch position. So let your shoulders go up to your ears with your elbows straight. Let your chin drop towards your chest. You're way behind your sits bones, rounded through your spine. And then from here, you'll start to roll forward onto your sits bones and begin to arch your spine, your low back, your middle back, your upper back, and take your gaze up towards the ceiling. And then the opposite. You go back into your curl or your cat, your rounded shape. And then the opposite into extension. And notice not only what's happening in your spine and your pelvis, but also this connection or this ground force reaction, what happens when you push with your hands and the outer edges of your feet to make all these movements happen through your spine and your pelvis. Let's do 2 more. You could explore breathing in the arch and breathing out through the curl, or vice versa. And last time. Okay, and then we're going to come into Sukhasana, so just a regular cross-legged position, but you want to make sure that you have your left ankle in front because you're going to hold your left foot with both of your hands. So think of like an interlace or a sandwich, so to speak. And once you've got your right foot sandwiched between your hands, we'll do a similar movement. So you'll round your back and move your foot away from your chest and then come back up. And you can come all the way up or you can come part way. So again, we're just exploring the movement. What does it feel like when you round your spine? It's almost like, reminds me of archery or a bow and arrow. So if my arms were the bow, I guess, no, the arrow, you know what I'm talking about. But my favorite part of this is the delicious stretch between your shoulder blades and in your middle back that you get from pushing your foot away. Let's go for a couple more. Maybe it's much smaller this time. And then coming back to Sukhasana. We're going to come back onto our backs in constructive rest. And take a moment to, again, notice your body's imprint in the sand. Take a slow breath in. And as you exhale, notice the ground, the sand, and the air against your skin. Go ahead and lift your left foot up, and you're going to hold it in both of your hands in the same way you were doing in Sukhasana. But this time, you'll let your left knee go out to the side, and then bring your left foot back above you. And I want you to explore what it's like when you do this with your foot closer to your pubic bone, to your navel, versus what it feels like when your left foot is more above your solar plexus or your chest. And again, you're not trying to go into the biggest, range of motion or trying to get your left knee to the ground. You're literally just exploring small movements and observing what you feel, sensation. Let's do one more time. And then let go of your left foot. Feet are back on the floor. You're going to separate your legs a little bit wider apart. And then pause for a moment. Feel your connection to the floor through your feet, your spine, your skull. And then let your right knee drop in towards the midline. So you'll feel how the sole of your foot's no longer on the floor. You're on the inside edge of your right foot. And then you'll bring your right foot back to the ground. So again, not a big movement. You're just dropping your femur, your thigh bone, your knee in towards the floor, a little internal rotation, and then back up. Let's do that just a few more times. You're on the sole of your foot, then you're on the medial side, big toe side, and back. And then last time. Okay, so let's go back again to our figure 4, where you have both hands around your left foot. And we did this movement already, and we did this movement already. So we're going to put it together. We're going to start with the right knee. So the right knee drops in towards the midline. You take your left knee out to the side, and you may or may not end up rolling up to seated. And then we reverse the movement. So I'm just dropping down onto my shoulder, onto my back and head. So right knee drops in towards the midline, and you roll. And notice how efficient it might be. When I teach this to my students, oftentimes it takes, maybe 5 or 6 repetitions to get up. So there's a moment where you figure it out, and it's kind of fun. So I'll give you some hints. You have to round your spine in order to roll, right? Balls are round, that's why they roll. And if you think of leading with your shoulder, that sometimes helps. So I'm rolling onto my left shoulder, left knee, left shin, and foot. Let's do it one more time. And then release your foot, let your legs go long, and pause in Shavasana for a halfway check. And send your awareness to the left side of your body. So if you were to imagine a line going through your head, down your spine, all the way to your tailbone, and you divide your body into 2 halves, what does the imprint feel like in the sand for the left side of your head versus the right? What is your imprint in the sand through the left side of your torso and arm versus the right? What's the imprint feel like from your left buttock and leg and foot in comparison to the right buttock, leg, and foot? And for me, the left side of my body feels a lot heavier, like its imprint would be bigger in the sand than the left side. Let's see what you notice. And then we'll repeat everything on the other side. So bend your knees, and this time you're going to take your left hand and hold the sole of your right foot. And we start with just bending and straightening your right knee. And again, that's a relative term. It's not going to fully straighten. You're moving your foot a little more up towards the ceiling and down towards the floor. And what is this closed loop? How does it kind of feed your brain? What do you learn from this movement? Because by moving your knee and your arm, that might change the position of your pelvis and your spine or not. On these next few times, try it where your foot is a little more off to the left as you straighten and bend. Try it where your foot and knee are a little more off to the right. And then release for a moment, just pause. Feel the sand underneath your toes. And check in with your breath. And then let's add on. So go back to holding your right foot with your left hand, but this time you're going to support your head with your right hand. And as you straighten your left knee, you'll lift your head up and lower it back down. And this movement could be really small. It could be just barely lifting your head and a small bit of movement through the knee, or it could be really big where you lift your head and your chest, almost, like you're doing a sit-up. So explore your options. Explore what different sensations you notice with the different variations and strategies. Maybe again, your left foot moves more to the left as you lift and lower. Or you lift and lower and kind of rotate your chest a bit to one side or to the other. There's endless variations. A couple more times. Notice what you're doing with your eyes. So can you let your eyes lead the way, taking your gaze down to your belly to help lift your head up a little bit higher? Or even try it with maybe your eyes closed. Then let go with your foot and pause for a moment in constructive rest. Take your fingers to your frontal hip points and just rock your pelvis a little bit forward and back. So a little anterior tilt where your low back gets further away from the floor, a little posterior tilt where your low back gets heavier. Most of these movements we've just done, we were in more of a posterior pelvic tilt. Okay, and then roll onto your side, come up to seated for cobbler's pose. So again, you'll have the soles of your feet together, and you're gonna take your hands behind you like a little kickstand, and start really rounded and slumped over. I love this one, it feels so good. So almost like your shoulders become a turtleneck, so sink yourself down. I like to think of my arms are like toothpicks, and they're just kind of supporting me like two little stilts. And then you push into the ground to roll your pelvis forward, your belly moves forward, your chest moves forward and up, and you look up. And then you reverse the movement, starting to sink and round your spine. Inhale here and send your breath into the most rounded part of your spine. And then start to migrate, shifting your weight from behind your sits bones to onto your sits bones, maybe forward of your sits bones, pushing into the ground. A couple more times, and exploring, who knows, maybe you kind of rotate a little bit as you round and arch. And you keep it kind of low here. Maybe you bring your feet a little closer and your hands a little closer, and notice how that changes the movement. One more time. Flexing and extending. And then we'll come into Sukhasana. And this time it's going to be your right shin in front of your left shin. So coming into Sukhasana with your right shin in front of your left, and you're going to take both of your hands and clasp around your right foot. And similar to what we did when we were lying on our back, you're going to round your spine and press your foot forward. I think this is the best part. Such a nice stretch and feeling to pull your shoulder blades apart using your foot, and then coming back up. So variations you could explore here if you wanted to. Maybe you take your right foot a little off to the right and your right knee further out to the right. Or the opposite. Maybe you take your right foot a little more over to the left, and you'll get different vectors of stretch, maybe different sensations. Let's do 2 more times. Sometimes maybe it's a more vigorous push with the foot, and other times maybe you're pulling more with your hands. And then go ahead and release back to Sukhasana. Okay, we're gonna come back onto the floor into constructive rest. And pause for a moment, just notice your imprint in the sand. Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. So now both of your hands are going to hold your right foot, and you'll send your right leg, your right knee off to the right and then back again. And as you do this, you could keep your foot more above your belly or your chest, or you could take your foot a little further down towards your pubic bone, towards the floor. So there's more of a bend at your knee as you do it. What does that feel like? Versus less bend in your knee. Couple more times. Feeling how maybe the weight transfers from your spine, perhaps more towards the right side of your back, or you keep your spine connected and it's more just your leg that's moving and your spine is still. And then go ahead and release. Take your feet wide, a little wider than your hips, and let your left leg drop in towards your midline and then back up. So you'll be rolling from the sole of your left foot to the inner border of your left foot. Maybe feel some stretch here, some work there, or none of the above. Again, this is all just to notice. 2 more times. Let your left leg adduct, internally rotate. Maybe you make it really easy and slow and small, or maybe you make a little more effort and do the opposite. There is no good or bad, you're just exploring. Last time, and then coming back up. Okay, so gonna grab your right foot with both of your hands, and we did that movement, we did knee towards midline movement, so we're gonna put it together by starting with dropping your left knee towards your midline. So your left knee, left leg drops to the right, and then you take your right knee out to the side and you roll yourself up to seated. Then to come back down, remember, in order to roll, you have to be round through your spine. And in order to not crash land, you want to use the side of your body and your shoulder as well as your leg to make the transition. So Moshe Feldenkrais, he was a judo expert. And I've never done martial arts, but I've watched. And there's all kinds of rolling patterns that happen very fast and efficient. So explore what it's like to go from your back into a fully seated position with this constraint. The constraint being that your hands are holding your foot. Then go ahead and release your foot and come back to Shavasana. And return your awareness back to the sand. You're back on the beach. The sun is shining. There's a nice cool breeze on your skin, and you can hear the waves. And imagine one more time the line that goes from the crown of your head through your skull, down the center line of your body, where your spine is, to your tailbone. And then send your awareness to your right body half, noticing the imprint of the right side of your head, right shoulder, arm, and upper back in the sand. Noticing the imprint of the whole right side of your torso, your right rib cage, right side waist, right pelvic half, right leg and foot. And if you were to float up outside of your body, above your body, and look down, what would the imprint be of your right side body in the sand? And then shifting your awareness to your left body half. Feeling, observing the imprint of the left side of your head and shoulder and arm in the sand. The depth of the left side of your torso, left rib cage, left buttock, the concavity of the sand and your imprint on the left back of your leg and foot. And then bring those two body halves together in your mind's eye and feel your whole body, in the sand. Then slowly bend one knee, find the floor with your foot, bend the other knee, back into constructive rest, and then roll onto one side and make your way up to seated. So I hope you enjoyed the figure 4 play rolling patterns. For our next mini sequence, we will be starting lying on our back on the floor in an X, and you don't need any props. So make yourself comfortable on the floor in this big X shape. And take a moment to notice your breath and your connection to the floor. Since this is a lower extremity initiated rolling pattern, you'll start by bending your left knee and just kind of sliding your foot along the floor, pulling your left knee towards your left armpit, and then cross the midline with your left knee. And that's going to initiate the rolling of your pelvis. Then once your left big toe finds the ground, start to straighten your left knee, and you'll roll all the way onto your belly. From your belly, bring your hands together and lift your head and chest. Then you're going to slide your left leg towards your right. And again, there's this big stretch from your left hand to your left foot. And that initiates the rolling pattern from your foot, leg, pelvis, belly, chest. So we're going to do that same thing, but the other direction. So you slide your right foot along the floor, right knee to armpit, and then cross across with your right leg. Find the floor, start to lengthen from your right foot to your right fingertips until you're on your belly. But you'll lift up by pushing into the ground, and then slide your right leg towards your left. And as you roll, you initiate from your foot, leg, pelvis, and then you end up back where you started. Let's do it again. So left knee bends, left knee to armpit, left knee across the midline, reach and roll. Lifting your head, your chest, start to slide your left leg towards your right, And then your left leg goes past your right, but find the floor with your left big toe and complete the rolling pattern. Start to slide your right foot along the ground, right knee to right armpit, and then your right leg crosses across your midline. Find the floor with your right big toe and initiate the rolling pattern from your foot, through your leg, through your center, all the way to your upper body. Inhale, lift, right leg slides towards your left, and then past your left as far as you can go. That diagonal stretch from right hand to right foot carries you across and back onto your back. Take a moment here and just wiggle a little bit, get comfortable, and settle in. And notice, how does your back body connect to the floor now versus how it felt before the rolling pattern? Do your arms or legs feel heavier or lighter? Is your breath bigger or more easeful? Is it more available to you to soften the muscles in your face, your neck, your jaw, your belly? Start to slide your right leg towards your left and slide your right arm along the floor. And then once you run into your head, you'll turn your head. Start to bend your elbows, bend your knees, curl into the side seat. And then reach with your right leg long and let your body follow up to seated. Thank you so much for exploring this practice with me today.